Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Michigan Realtors Government Affairs videocast. I'm Brad Ward.
And I'm Brian Westrin.
And you are you. And things are very busy here in Lansing. We just had a special election. As you recall, the House was a 54-54 divided Democratic Republican majority. Come tomorrow, those two new state reps will be sworn in, restoring that original 56-54 majority that the House Democrats enjoyed at the beginning of this session. But we had a very busy week last week in committee and on the floor, starting off with the House Economic Development Committee. Brought up bills dealing with MSHDA. And no, this is not the dreaded real estate transfer tax that we talked about on our last video cast. By the way, thank you everyone who responded to that call for action. Very successful call for action. I'm happy to report that proposal is off the table to increase the real estate transfer tax. No, these bills really deal with kind of the current parameters on MSHDA to make sure that they can continue to keep fulfilling their mission and filling their role in Michigan housing finance. So a couple of these bills, one would increase their bonding authority, and then the other one, probably more importantly, increases the sales price limit, which hasn't been adjusted, I think, in almost 10 years. So really updating the sales price limit that a MSHDA loan could apply for. Those bills moved out of committee and are now headed to the House floor. Anticipated action on those would probably be this week or next week. But also in the House Reg Reform Committee, we dealt with service provision agreements.
Yes, indeed, and specifically the right to list. Many of the lawmakers were hearing from concerned constituents about a practice whereby people were being approached to list their property. They would receive some consideration, but of course, on the other side of that, the properties could be tied up for up to 40 years with that right to list agreement, and in some instances, a memorandum was recorded to encumber that property. A lot of concern from the registers of deeds, title companies alike. But the good news is after passing overwhelmingly out of the Senate with great leadership from Senator Kevin Hertel, this looks like it's on a fast track to get through the House as well. We've got one more committee hearing whereby they will vote it out into the House floor, and we don't anticipate any strong opposition at all.
Yeah, not a whole lot of committees meeting this week because of the budget, but we anticipate that this comes up at the very next House Reg Reform Committee. Additionally, the House Local Government and Municipal Finance Committee continued taking testimony on the new version of the short-term rental bills. And when I say short-term rental bills, I don't mean the good ones. These bills are significantly different from the short-term rental protections that we pursued last session, which dealt with the use, the right, the ability of a homeowner to short-term rent. These bills kind of ignore that, leave all of those local government powers in place to ban, to exercise, severely limiting restrictions on them through zoning, and replace all of the rights that we were through with heavy-handed state regulation and tax penalties for short-term rentals. So the one bill creates a statewide registry that applies to any homeowner the first night that they choose to rent out their property. They have to come up with the registration. They have to come up with $1 million insurance policy, along with a number of other regulations to make sure that they're in compliance with the statewide registry. Not to mention, it also creates a 6% excise tax to be levied on just short-term rentals, a new short-term rental tax, and combines those with Convention and Visitors Bureau, Stadium Authority taxes. Right. So really, when you start looking at all of the taxes in the grand scheme of things, and we've never shied away from the tax conversation as an association, but we always said they should be on par with traditional lodging facilities. This is really a scheme where if you take the current 6% use tax, combine that with the new 6% excise tax, plus all of these other potential local taxes, you could be looking at an effective tax rate somewhere in the neighborhood of 17 to 18% on a short-term rental stay versus 11 or 12% on a traditional lodging facility stay. So really, we're talking about a fairly stiff and significant tax penalty for using a short-term rental. So we've been meeting with members of the committee expressing voicing our opposition, saying, there is a time and place to talk about registration and taxation of these things, but the third leg of that stool really has to be addressing the property rights here. And we're not saying it has to be the bill that we pursued last session, but something that makes sure that we define what a short-term rental is and at least start to protect a homeowner's ability to do it.
Yeah, understood. Very short-sighted approach to short-term rentals, perhaps.
A short-term site?
Yeah, disturbing to say the least. And then we've also got post-closing occupancy agreements headed to the finish line. If you recall, those bills really seek to address something that's becoming more and more common, especially with light inventory, whereby a purchaser agrees with the seller that the seller will continue to occupy the property. But up until this point, we haven't really had a defined term for what that post-closing occupancy would look like. And these bills would distinguish that type of agreement from a traditional landlord-tenant relationship. Important distinction to make. And those bills are anticipated to be voted on April 30th. This Tuesday.
Yeah, definitely something that we're looking forward to getting done, kind of encourage a broader and better use of these agreements. I think you pointed out that the hesitancy to do it, not wanting to create that kind of true landlord-tenant relationship. But another busy week anticipated here. The budget is kind of the focus right now to try and get it done before the end of June. House has returned to full strength, so I think there's a little bit more wind in the sails, and some of these will start moving, and we will keep you updated here from the Capitol. And with that, I'm Brad Ward.
And I'm Brian Westrin.
Thank you very much for watching.